Ever feel like you're running a race with no finish line? You achieve something, people praise you, your life looks good on paper, but deep down, there's this quiet hum, a persistent whisper that says, "Still not there. Still not enough." It's not a roar, it's more insidious, like a shadow clinging to your brightest moments. Maybe it's that knot in your stomach before a presentation, even when you're totally prepared. Or that wave of self-doubt that crashes over you after a minor social fumble. You tell yourself, "I should be over this by now." But it lingers, doesn't it? What if I told you that this relentless feeling of inadequacy, this inner critic that seems to have a PhD in your shortcomings, isn't actually your fault in the way you think? And what if the popular advice, "Just love yourself more, think positive, crush your goals," while well-intentioned, is like putting a fancy bandage on a deep wound that needs stitches? We're often told these feelings stem from low self-esteem, comparing ourselves to others on social media, or not being ambitious enough. And yes, those things can amplify the feeling. But they're often symptoms, not the root cause. The real origin story of your not good enough monster is far more profound, and understanding it is the first, crucial step towards genuine, lasting self-acceptance. Today, we're not just scratching the surface. We're going deep, guided by one of the titans of psychology, Carl Jung, to uncover why this feeling haunts so many of us, and more importantly, how to begin the journey of healing it, not by fighting it, but by understanding its secret language. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll see that inner critic not as an enemy, but as a misunderstood guide. This feeling of not enoughness is an epidemic in our modern world. We're more connected than ever, yet many feel profoundly isolated in this internal struggle. We're bombarded with images of perfection, curated lives, and relentless pressure to achieve, to optimize, to be more. Pop psychology often offers quick fixes, affirmations, gratitude journaling, vision boards. And these tools can be helpful. I use some of them myself. But when that feeling of inadequacy is bone deep, these techniques can sometimes feel like trying to wallpaper over a crumbling wall. You might feel better for a day, a week, but the old cracks reappear. Why? Because they don't address the unconscious drivers of that feeling. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology, spent his life exploring these hidden depths of the human psyche. He wasn't interested in superficial fixes. He wanted to understand the architecture of the soul. Jung proposed a revolutionary idea: we all have a shadow. Now, when you hear shadow, you might think of something dark, sinister, evil. But that's a common misinterpretation. Jung's shadow isn't inherently bad. It's simply the disowned, unacknowledged, or repressed parts of our personality. Think of yourself as a house. The living room, the kitchen, these are the parts of you that you show the world, the parts you're comfortable with, your persona, as Jung called it. But every house has a basement, an attic, maybe a few forgotten closets. These are where we store the things we don't want to look at, or we're told are unacceptable. These are the realms of the shadow. It's everything we've been taught, explicitly or implicitly, to reject about ourselves to fit in, to be loved, to survive. The shadow is where your not good enough story often takes root and festers. It's not just your negative traits like anger, jealousy, or fear, though those are certainly part of it if they've been suppressed. It's also, paradoxically, where much of your unexpressed potential can lie dormant: your raw creativity, your fierce independence, your untamed joy, your deepest sensitivities. Anything that didn't fit the mold you were expected to conform to. So, how does this shadow form? It begins in childhood, almost from birth. As children, we are incredibly attuned to our environment, especially our caregivers. We learn quickly what behaviors earn us praise, love, and safety, and which ones lead to disapproval, punishment, or emotional withdrawal. Imagine little Maya, a vibrant, expressive child. She's loud when she's happy, cries openly when she's sad, and asks a million questions. If her parents, perhaps overwhelmed or uncomfortable with big emotions, repeatedly tell her, "Don't be so loud, stop crying, you're being a baby," or, "That's a silly question," Maya starts to learn. She learns that her natural exuberance, her sadness, her curiosity are too much, or not right. So, to maintain connection and approval, she begins to push those parts of herself away. She shoves them into her psychological basement. She might become a quieter, more compliant child. On the surface, she's well behaved. But that vibrant, expressive part of her? It doesn't just vanish. It becomes part of her shadow. Or consider young Alex, who is naturally sensitive and artistic. In a family that values toughness and practical skills above all else, his sensitivity might be ridiculed as weakness, his artistic inclinations dismissed as frivolous. Alex learns to hide his tender heart, to suppress his creative urges. These, too, are relegated to the shadow. These aren't necessarily acts of malicious parenting. Often, parents are passing on their own unexamined wounds and societal conditioning. But the impact is the same. We start to disown crucial aspects of who we are. We fragment ourselves. Jung said, "What you resist persists." And an unacknowledged shadow doesn't stay quietly in the basement. It finds ways to make its presence known. This is where the not good enough feeling often gets its power. The shadow projects. If you've disowned your anger, you might find yourself incredibly irritated by angry people, or attracting situations that constantly provoke you. If you've suppressed your own need for recognition, you might become fiercely judgmental of anyone who seems to crave attention. That intense reaction is often the shadow saying, "Hey! Look at this part of you that you've ignored." The not good enough voice is often the shadow's cry. It's the echo of all those rejected parts. "You could have done better" could be the voice of your suppressed ambition, afraid to fully shine because it was once shamed. "You're still not enough" might be the unmet needs of your inner child, still feeling unseen or unvalued. That social anxiety? Perhaps it's the fear of your authentic, maybe quirky, self being rejected again, just like it was in the past. The shadow also manifests in self-sabotage. Just when things are going well, you might inexplicably mess up. This isn't because you're inherently flawed, it can be the shadow, holding on to an old identity of unworthiness, trying to pull you back to what feels familiar and safe, even if it's painful. It's a protective mechanism gone haywire. It thinks it's keeping you safe by keeping you small, because once, being small was safer. Our typical response to these uncomfortable feelings, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the inadequacy, is to try to fix them, suppress them, or distract ourselves from them. We might throw ourselves into work, seek constant validation, numb out with entertainment, or engage in endless self-improvement cycles, hoping to finally arrive at a place of feeling good enough. But, as Jung pointed out, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Trying to simply eradicate the not good enough feeling without understanding its shadow origins is like trying to silence a fire alarm by yanking out its batteries while the fire still smolders. The alarm is annoying, yes, but it's signaling a deeper problem. That feeling of inadequacy is a messenger. And if you shoot the messenger, you miss the vital information it carries. In fact, aggressively trying to fix, or destroy, these parts of yourself can often strengthen the shadow, making it dig its heels in even further. It feels even more rejected, more misunderstood, and its whispers can turn into roars. So, if we can't fix it or ignore it, what do we do? Jung's answer is integration. This isn't about becoming perfect or eliminating the shadow. It's about bringing those disowned parts into conscious awareness, understanding them, and reintegrating them into your whole self. It's about turning towards the very things you've been taught to run from. Imagine that cluttered basement. Integration is like going down there with a flashlight, not to throw everything out, but to see what's there, to understand why it was stored away, and to decide what's still valuable, what needs dusting off, what needs compassion. This is courageous work. It means acknowledging, yes, I sometimes feel jealous. Yes, I have a part of me that's afraid of failure. Yes, I have a deep need for connection that sometimes feels vulnerable. It's about meeting these aspects with curiosity and compassion, rather than judgment. Think of it like this: the not good enough voice is often a very young part of you, frozen in time, still believing those old, painful messages. A scared child doesn't need to be yelled at or told to get over it. A scared child needs to be seen, heard, and reassured. Integration is, in many ways, a process of reparenting these wounded inner parts. When you start to listen to your shadow, to understand its fears and its unmet needs, its power to sabotage you diminishes. It no longer needs to scream to be heard. Let me share an example that illustrates this. I once worked with a woman, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was incredibly talented in her field, a graphic designer with a unique vision. But she was terrified of putting her work out there, of self-promotion. She'd create beautiful designs and then just sit on them. Her dream was to freelance full-time, but this fear paralyzed her. She constantly felt her work wasn't good enough compared to others, despite consistently getting positive feedback when she did share it. Through our work, exploring her shadow, a memory surfaced. In elementary school, she'd proudly presented a drawing she'd poured her heart into. A classmate, perhaps out of their own insecurity, had loudly mocked it, and the teacher, busy and distracted, hadn't intervened. Little Sarah felt immense shame and humiliation. She'd unconsciously decided, it's not safe to be seen. My creations will be ridiculed. That part of her, the proud little artist, was exiled to the shadow. Her adult fear of visibility and the not good enough feeling about her designs wasn't really about her current skill level. It was the echo of that little girl's shame. By bringing this memory into the light, by acknowledging that young Sarah's pain and validating her feelings, adult Sarah could begin to separate past trauma from present reality. She learned to tell that scared inner part, I see you. You were hurt. But we're safe now. It's okay to shine. It wasn't an overnight fix, but slowly, she started sharing her work, taking small, courageous steps. The not good enough voice didn't vanish entirely, but it lost its paralyzing grip. It became a whisper she could acknowledge with compassion, rather than a command she had to obey. How do you begin this journey of integration? One of the most potent ways is to pay close attention to your emotional triggers. Those moments when you have an outsized reaction to something, when you get disproportionately angry, defensive, ashamed, or anxious. These aren't random. They are often direct lines to your shadow. That intense annoyance when someone seems arrogant. Could it be your own disowned confidence, your inner peacock, that you were taught to hide, projecting onto them? That overwhelming sadness when you feel ignored? It might connect to an early experience of not feeling seen or valued. When you get triggered, instead of immediately reacting or blaming, try to pause. Get curious. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling underneath this anger/anxiety/shame? What does this remind me of? Is there an older, younger part of me that feels this way? What is this situation asking me to look at within myself? These triggers are like breadcrumbs left by your shadow, leading you back to the parts that need healing and reclamation. They are invitations to go deeper. Now, here's a crucial and often overlooked part of Jung's concept. The shadow doesn't just contain your dark or difficult stuff. It also holds your gold. These are the positive qualities, talents, and strengths that you may have disowned, often because they weren't valued or were even punished in your early environment. Maybe you were a naturally assertive child, but were told, nice girls are quiet. Your assertiveness, a valuable strength, might have been relegated to the shadow. Reclaiming it isn't about becoming aggressive, it's about integrating healthy assertiveness. Perhaps you were highly intuitive and sensitive, but were dismissed as too emotional, or living in a dream world. Your intuition, a powerful gift, might be languishing in your shadow. Your wild creativity, your unconventional ideas, your deep sensuality, your righteous anger that fuels justice, your unique sense of humor, if these were ever shamed or suppressed, they too reside in the shadow, waiting to be reclaimed. So, shadow work isn't just about confronting pain. It's also about excavating treasure. The not good enough feeling can sometimes be a sign that you're not living in alignment with these powerful, buried parts of yourself. You feel inadequate because you're operating at a fraction of your true potential, because your brightest gold is still locked away. Healing, then, isn't just about becoming calmer or more zen. It can also be about becoming louder, bolder, more fully you. Understanding the shadow is enlightening, but insight alone isn't enough for transformation. As Jung wisely said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. We need practical ways to engage with this inner world, to move from intellectual understanding to lived experience. So, how do we actually start this process of integration and begin to cultivate a genuine, resilient sense of enoughness? This isn't about a 3-step quick fix to eternal bliss. This is ongoing, compassionate inner work. But here are 3 powerful practices, inspired by Jungian principles and modern therapeutic approaches, to help you begin. Remember, gentleness and consistency are key. Tool 1: The Compassionate Shadow Check-In. At least a few times a week, set aside 10 to 15 minutes of quiet, uninterrupted time. Acknowledge and name, ask yourself, when did I feel a pang of not good enough today or this week? When did I feel small, ashamed, triggered, or like I had to hide a part of myself? Don't just skim the surface. Try to pinpoint a specific moment or feeling. Locate the sensation. Where do you feel it in your body? A tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach? A lump in your throat? Just notice it without judgment. Our bodies hold so much wisdom. Connect with the younger you. Gently ask the feeling. How old does this part of me feel? Often, a surprisingly young age will come to mind. This helps you connect with the part of you that first experienced this wound. Offer compassionate dialogue. Speak to this younger part internally. You might say something like, I see you. I know you're feeling, name the emotion, e.g., scared, inadequate, ashamed. It makes sense you feel that way because, acknowledge the past context if you know it, or simply validate the feeling. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. I'm here with you now. What does it need? Ask this part. What do you need from me right now? It might be reassurance, safety, acceptance, or just to be heard. Offer that to yourself internally. No fixing needed. The goal isn't to make the feeling go away instantly. It's to build a relationship of trust and compassion with these exiled parts. Journaling about this can be incredibly powerful. Writing it down gives it form and helps you process. This practice isn't about wallowing, it's about witnessing. It turns your inner landscape from a battleground into a sanctuary. Tool 2: The Mirror of Truth. Reframe. Most of us use mirrors for superficial judgment. This practice flips that. Gaze with kindness, stand before a mirror. Take a few deep breaths. Look into your own eyes, not at your flaws, not at your hair, but into your being. Try to see the person behind the self-criticism. The core affirmation and the shadows test say, out loud if possible, I am fundamentally whole and worthy of love, exactly as I am right now. Then listen. The not good enough voice, your shadow, will likely chime in. Yeah, but what about that mistake you made? You're just fooling yourself. You're not as good as so-and-so. Acknowledge, don't argue. This is crucial. Don't fight that voice. Don't try to suppress it. That just gives it more power. Instead, acknowledge it with compassion. Say, I hear that voice of doubt. I hear that fear. I understand why it's there. It's trying to protect me in an old way. And I love and accept that part of me too. Restate your truth, then, gently but firmly, return to your core affirmation. And still, I choose to believe I am whole and worthy of love, exactly as I am. Small doses, consistently. This might feel incredibly awkward or even painful at first, especially if self-rejection is deeply ingrained. Start with just 30 seconds. Do it daily. It's like training a muscle. You're not aiming for instant belief. You're aiming for a gradual rewiring of your self-perception, building self-trust layer by layer. You are teaching your nervous system that it's safe to accept yourself. Tool 3: The Evidence of Enoughness. Archive. This isn't about arrogance. It's about counterbalancing a lifetime of focusing on perceived deficits. Beyond achievements, your list of 10 reasons I am enough right now is foundational. But go deeper. Don't just list achievements. Focus on qualities of being, acts of courage, big or small, resilience, and learning. Examples: I am enough because I am capable of deep empathy. I am enough because I got out of bed today even when it felt hard. I am enough because I learned from that difficult conversation. I am enough because I survived a past hardship, and I'm still here. I am enough because my unique perspective matters. I am enough because I am committed to my growth, even when it's uncomfortable. The Gold Inventory. Specifically dedicate a section of your archive to your shadow's gold. What positive traits might you have suppressed? Ask, what was I criticized for as a child that might actually be a strength in disguise? E.g., too sensitive equals empathetic, too bossy equals leadership potential, daydreamer equals creative. What do I secretly admire in others that I don't allow in myself? This is often a projection of your own disowned gold. List these potential strengths. Collect external evidence, mindfully occasionally, when you receive genuine positive feedback, a compliment, or a note of thanks, save it in your archive. Not for ego inflation, but as tangible evidence to counter the inner critic when it gets loud. Read these when you're feeling particularly low. Regular review, revisit your evidence of enoughness archive regularly, especially when the not good enough gremlin starts whispering. This isn't about positive thinking to bypass pain. It's about building a more balanced and compassionate internal narrative, grounding yourself in a broader truth of your inherent worth. It's about remembering the multifaceted, resilient, and valuable human being you already are. It's essential to understand that this journey of integrating the shadow and cultivating a sense of enoughness is not a one-time event, but a lifelong practice. There will be days when you feel incredibly whole and self-accepting, and days when the old voices resurface. That's okay. That's human. The goal isn't to achieve some mythical state of perfection where you never doubt yourself again. The goal is wholeness. And wholeness, as Jung emphasized, includes all of it, the light and the dark, the strengths and the vulnerabilities, the joy and the sorrow. It's about developing the capacity to be with yourself, in all your complexity, with greater compassion and less judgment. It's about increasing your self-awareness so that when the shadow aspects do arise, you can recognize them, understand their message, and respond with wisdom rather than unconscious reaction. Each time you turn towards a disowned part with curiosity instead of criticism, you reclaim a piece of your power and your authentic self. This is the true meaning of becoming who you truly are, not some idealized version, but the real, messy, beautiful, and ultimately enough human being you were always meant to be. When you embark on this inner work, something remarkable happens. It doesn't just change your relationship with yourself, it changes your relationship with the world. As you stop judging and rejecting parts of yourself, you naturally become less judgmental and more compassionate towards others. You start to see their shadows, their struggles, with more understanding. The desperate hustle for external validation begins to lose its grip. That frantic need to prove your worth, to earn your seat at the table? It softens. Because you start to realize, as the original video beautifully put it, you are the table. Your worth is inherent, not conditional. You're not trying to become someone else. You're remembering and embodying the unique, valuable individual you already are, beneath all the conditioning and self-protection. This creates an inner spaciousness, a sense of being grounded in your own truth, that allows you to navigate life's challenges with far more grace and resilience. You start to trust that you belong, simply because you exist. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all of this? That persistent, nagging feeling of not being good enough is not a personal failing. It is a profound, albeit often painful, invitation from your deepest self, your soul, if you will, to embark on a journey of reclamation. It's a call to bring all parts of yourself home, especially those you've been taught to exile. Your shadow, far from being your enemy, holds the keys to your wholeness, your power, and your most authentic expression. The privilege of a lifetime, as Jung said, is to become who you truly are. and that becoming involves embracing your entirety. So, my invitation to you today isn't to wage war against your inner critic. It's to get curious. If you take one thing away, let it be this: you're not good enough. Story is not the truth of who you are, it's a signal pointing to unhealed parts that crave your compassionate attention. What's one small, gentle step you can take today? Perhaps it's simply acknowledging, without judgment, the next time that not good enough voice appears. Maybe it's trying one of the tools we discussed for just 5 minutes. Remember, this is a journey of 1,000 small steps, not a giant leap. You are not broken. You are unfolding. And within your own being lies an incredible capacity for healing and wholeness. The world doesn't need a more perfect you, it needs a more real you. If this exploration resonated with you, if it offered a new perspective or a glimmer of hope, please consider subscribing for more content that dives deep into the art of conscious living and self-understanding. And if you know someone who struggles with that feeling of not being good enough, share this video with them. Sometimes, just knowing we're not alone in these feelings can be incredibly healing. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of what it means to be truly, wholly human.